Hey guys, and welcome to the newest episode of Be Hero Presents the Bump Card Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, as always, Brian, and with me tonight is my tag partner, Psycho. How are you doing tonight, Psycho?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
It's a good stance. Doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I'm not falling over yet, so that's always a good sign.
This is true. If you guys want to have a fun time listening to our episode last week, towards the end, Psycho almost falling out of his chair, or go onto our social medias at Be Hero Media on pretty much everything, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you'll see a great video of Psycho almost falling over.
I mentioned this to you before, but it felt a lot worse than it looked. Like it felt like I was Hans Gruber in Die Hard falling from the skyscraper. Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
It totally didn't look like that. It looked hilarious, though.
Yeah.
That being said, so last week we mentioned that this week we were going to do our new bi-yearly state of wrestling, essentially. So we were gonna be talking about where wrestling is right now at about the 6-month mark, and then we're gonna do it again at the end of the year to see how close our predictions were, what are so on and so forth going into the following year. And we're still planning on doing that. But Psycho and I, we were watching Money in the Bank together, and that was a hell of a show. Honestly, that was probably one of the best pay-per-views WWE's had in a long, long time. From A to B, like there was really not a bad match on the card, and we decided that we are doing a disservice not only to ourselves but to you guys for not reviewing every great wrestling promotion going on at the time for their big shows. And I apologize if you guys can hear that in the background. There are fireworks going off because it's July 3rd, it's the day before for the 4th of July. So, and this is dropped for you guys on the 4th. So, or actually on the 5th, excuse me. So it's a good time. It's all that time of the year. That all being said, though, we are going to go ahead and review Money in the Bank for this year, just because of how good the show was. But we are still doing our State of Wrestling episode, which will be now next week. It's going to be a very good episode. It also gives actually time for us to talk about this show, because this show kind of does kick off. Where do they go from here? This feels like the end of a storyline for a certain one, or the tail end of to a storyline, a bookend, if you would, to a storyline, and it's almost perfect timing for us to do our State of Wrestling episode. So, but let's go ahead and talk about Money in the Bank, and what a really good show it was.
So the first match, they actually started with the men's Money in the Bank match. It was LA Knight versus Logan Paul versus Ricochet versus Shinsuke Nakamura versus Butch versus Damian Priest and versus Santos Escobar. And I can't tell you about the beginning of this match because I was a little late joining it.
You only missed like 5 minutes of that.
What did I miss in the beginning?
Honestly, there's not a whole lot you missed. Like I said, you only missed maybe 5 minutes. They started off by all attacking Logan Paul, which was good. He got up there and did that cocky heel thing where he's, up front talking about who's going to be the top guy, and everyone in the ring just destroys him for a hot minute and throws him out.
Okay.
They do that, and then they kind of split off, and then it wasn't too long after that you got over to the house. So.
Okay. So this, for what I saw of it, and I saw most of it, but I thought it was a well done Money in the Bank ladder match. There were some good spots, like there was and some scary spots actually, but there was a spot where I can't remember who it was on the ladder when Ricochet did a 450 onto the ladder. Who was that on the ladder?
One was Butch, and I can't remember who the other one was.
Okay.
I want to say it was Santos Escobar, but I could be wrong.
Okay, but yeah, they were on the ladder. He does a 450. And
Springboard 450.
Yeah, Springboard 450. And that was an awesome spot. You had
and to clarify, they weren't on the ladder directly. They did that
like a bridge with it, right?
They did the bridge across the ladder in the middle of the ring and the rope, and the two of them are laying on top of the bridging ladder, and then the springboard for 50.
Right.
Before we go too far into this, honestly, guys, you guys should watch this show if you're a fan of wrestling at all. There's something in this show for you. So watch the show and then totally come back and listen to this.
Yeah. And as always, I'm not gonna detail everything that happened in it, but because I mean, you should go watch it yourselves, like Brian says there. But there was a really scary spot where Logan Paul and Ricochet were like fighting on like the ropes on the outside, and I guess it was supposed to be like a Spanish fly, like that Ricochet was going to do to Logan Paul, like through the tables, but they didn't rotate quite the way that you would go to take that, and it looked really scary because it looked like Logan Paul's head like went head first into the tables. He rotated a little bit, but it looked really scary at first.
Yeah, so what it was, based off of the way it looked to me, is the spot they had going into it is they had, I think it was Damian Priest pushing the ladder over while both Logan Paul and Ricochet are going up the ladder. And my guess is they were supposed to step onto the top rope, as it looked like they were trying to do, together, and then Spanish fly into a set of tables that were set up on the outside. Is exactly the way it looked like it was supposed to happen. But one or both of them missed the rope, and so they were trying to gimmick it the best they can, trying to make it make sense, and da da da. And because Logan Paul didn't really have a great base on the rope, because he was kind of between, he was dangling over the top rope and then feet on both the middle, or on the middle rope for both feet. But it was weird when they went over. Logan Paul crashed hard, and subsequently Ricochet, who was trying to take him over with him, also was crashing hard, and he barely made it over too without landing on his head, because he's backflipping where Logan Paul's just doing a front flip on the Spanish fly. It was scary to watch.
It really was. There was a lot of good performances in this match, though. I personally thought Shinsuke Nakamura was looking motivated like he hasn't been in I don't know how long. And so he was looking good there. He fit perfectly into this match. And then you had somebody like LA Knight, who was very popular there, especially in London. And he was somebody that I thought could possibly win it and get the push. It actually came down where Damian Priest, so I guess Escobar and Nakamura were taken out by LA Knight, and LA Knight was climbing to the top, but Damian Priest came and dropped him with his broken arrow move off the ladder, and he actually won or grabbed the briefcase.
Yep.
And it was I'm not the biggest Damian Priest fan. I know you aren't either. But it makes sense that he would win it, just because I can definitely tell that they are very high on him as somebody that could be a top guy. And I do have to say that he's kind of growing on me a little bit, just because he had the really good match with like Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico. And there's been some other things where it's like, okay, this guy can have a good match here and there. You know, he's not, he tries hard. I don't know. I don't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite choice to win. But I mean, it's not a bad choice. That's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I was Well, as a fan, I was hoping it was Ricochet who was going to win, but as a sensible fan, as a sensible fan, I thought I was hoping it was going to be LA Knight. But seeing the available storylines to go from that match, which is what you have to do with Money in the Bank, it's kind of like the Royal Rumble. You have to see what the best possible storyline is going from there. Damian Priest is the best storyline. One, he's an established faction that is already having a bit of trouble with each other, especially Finn and Damian. You know, Finn's having a title match later. So this is exactly the kind of story that you want to have in this. And so it was kind of obvious who was going to win it for me. But I think it worked out well because there was that hot minute just beforehand where LA Knight looked like he was going to win. And they'd be stupid not to have LA Knight win the title of some variety. He could easily take on like Austin Theory and get the U.S. title. And make it make sense because he is hot. Like, they need to hit him hot right now while the iron is hot because he has gotten himself over.
Yeah. I didn't think it was that like predictable for who was going to win. Like, I actually thought there were a couple of guys here that could potentially win it. But yeah. Did you have any other final thoughts on this match before we move on?
No, it was a very good men's ladder match, but it was very by the numbers. If that makes sense. For the Money in the Bank match, like there's some nice spots, but there was nothing to talk home about. There wasn't. They were trying to build storylines going into this show for the Money in the Bank, and they didn't really pay any off. Like, there was a story between Shinsuke and Ricochet going into this, and then they really didn't do anything in the match. Logan Paul was the only story at all that was involved, and it's only because like all these guys had to fight for a spot. He was given a spot. They were pissed. They attacked him. Outside of that, there was no other story in the match except for trying to get the belt. But there was opportunity.
I do think that it was a good group of guys that were in this match. I thought they meshed really well together.
Oh yeah. But that would be the way to elevate this match. Like, don't get me wrong, the match is very good, but it was by the numbers. To elevate a match like that, you need to have story or stories to go into it. You could have had a number of different stories, which we see later in the women's match. They actually elevate that because of the stories that are involved.
Right, and we'll get to that. Speaking of the women, we've got the women's tag team title match up next, which you've got Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler defending against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And I actually really enjoyed most of this match. I thought Ronda looked the best she's looked in like months, if not maybe a year. I thought she looked really good. I thought it was actually a pretty good tag match. I'm not completely sold on Raquel. To me, she's kind of a generic, how do I say this? She's kind of the generic like muscular woman. And so to me, I don't see more to her yet. That doesn't mean that with the right story or with the right character development that she can't get there for me. But I did like the match for what it was. The only thing I didn't like was not necessarily I didn't like it, but it was a little weird and off-putting was the finish of the match. But I'm trying to see if there was anything during the match that maybe nothing really stood out to me during the match other than it was a good tag match and they both teams looked good. But the finish was kind of strange.
Yeah.
So out of like nowhere, and they weren't even in trouble or they didn't telegraph it at all. But we had Shayna Baszler just attack Ronda Rousey, like seemingly for no good reason, and choke her out, and then she left, and Raquel powerbombed Ronda to finish the match and give them the titles. I don't really know what happened here, and I'm sure they'll explain it.
They have.
Okay, they've explained it tonight. I don't watch the weekly shows for you guys that are new that don't listen frequently. I don't watch the weekly shows that often, but Brian keeps up with that.
Would you believe if I told you they're also trying to sell Shayna Baszler as a face?
Wait, they're trying to sell her as the face and Ronda's still the heel? Okay, that's backwards to me. And I don't get me wrong, I think Ronda is a better heel than she is a babyface.
Agreed.
But the way this looked at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view or whatever, premium live event, I don't know how you switch that. So I don't know how they've done it or what they're trying to push. Maybe her story was something that made sense.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
So before we jump into that, and I'll bring it up to anyone, or bring it up to you so we can talk about it.
Okay.
But I did enjoy this match. The best story about this match going into it is Liv had just come back from having shoulder and pec surgery, right? Or shoulder and pec injury, excuse me, not surgery. Which is why they had to drop the titles initially, which then Ronda and Shayna won. And the first thing right off the bat that they go do, Shayna goes and attacks the shoulder, and they work the shoulder, and that's the biggest thing. All the sympathy, all the heat you get for almost the whole of the match is Liv having her shoulder attacked and Liv selling the shoulder the whole time. It's a great story for the match. I was super behind the whole story. I agree with you that I think Raquel is very one-dimensional at the moment. I think she has opportunities to become more, but she's young relative to the business. So I think that there's plenty of time for her to add more character to her and figure all that out. I think putting her in a tag with Liv is the right idea because Liv is someone who has had to essentially do the same thing. She was a one-dimensional character who has built on that. So I think that's the right path to go down. As we talked about on Saturday, I was also very about the finish because it didn't make any sense. You had Shayna, who was on top, and Ronda's howling for attack. She goes and she gets pushed over to the corner. Shayna does. Ronda tags herself in, and then does her little reloading the gun's little spot she does with her arms, and then Shayna attacks her from behind. It didn't make sense at the time, outside of the tagging herself in, but they start off pretty good on a promo on Monday for Raw. Ronda comes out, goes to start cutting a promo. She gets about 2 words in, and which, by the way, if you watch Raw, that is literally the theme of the night. You go and watch, or she goes about 2 words in, and Shayna's new music hits, and she comes out and says, "I can speak. I think I can speak for everybody else here, but nobody wants to hear you on a mic." And straight up calling shots. And Shayna goes and cuts this promo when Ronda's asking why. She's like, "Why? Because if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. I had to struggle. I had to go and work in front of 30 fans on the indies. I had to go and pay my dues by setting up the ring, by traveling, by doing all this stuff to get here, to strive, to kick the door in, to be a woman like me, to get into this place. And you strove in at WrestleMania and stuff like that." Like, she cuts this great promo of fighting between being an indie and just a random person that wants to do this, right? A hobbyist. and stuff. And I don't know if it was intended to be a heel promo, but it totally came off sympathetic as a face promo. And the fans bit into it 100%. They were like 100% behind Shayna with it. And I mean, I was behind Shayna too. Like, she cut a very passionate, good promo for it. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. I know. So the story makes sense. I just wish, like, it didn't come out of nowhere. Like, I wish it would have been. This is one of those times where it would have been good to telegraph it a little bit, or not even like give it away where it's less shock value, but just make it make sense. Like, why now? Like, because all of those points that you just mentioned for Shayna's promo there, all of those were true a month ago, 2 months ago. What was the catalyst, right, that took you from getting along to, oh yeah, I got you here. So, like, that part doesn't make sense because you don't usually flip that switch like that.
I agree, which they don't really acknowledge in the promo of why now about it. I'm hoping that either they do a better video package going into the obvious match that these two are going to have, or something to explain it better. Because they might do is like, you see every once in a while in the WWE where they do something that they think is subtle, but no fan picks it up at all, ever.
Right.
And then they go back and be like, oh, I missed that. Oh, I missed that because it was too subtle.
Right.
And that's probably what it's going to be.
I hope so. I do know. So what I heard behind the scenes, so I heard that they did this turn because I guess Ronda has given them like a hard out of when she's leaving again. And so she wanted to she wants to to wrestle Shayna, and so they had to drop the titles because this was the last possible time they could do it before she's leaving, and so they had to get this in, so they had to rush it a little bit. And I think Ronda getting injured kind of stalled it too, because they would have had more time to build it up, but she got injured, and so this was the only thing they could do. So if all of that is true, I get it. I wish Ronda would have been like, okay, I was injured, so let's do the proper build here. Because otherwise it really, what it really does is it makes the women's tag titles it diminishes them a little bit. It doesn't make them seem important when they're playing hot potato like this, and they don't actually win the belts because they win because the partners attacked each other or whatnot. The way I would have booked it, if that's what they were going for, I would have had Liv and Raquel, I would have had them win clean and then have Shayna turn on Ronda after the match, because that would have made more sense, because it's like, oh, you lost, especially if Ronda was the one that's pinned, and if she's leaving anyway, why not put over, and if the tag team is imploding, there's no reason why they couldn't have put over Liv and Raquel to make them stronger champions.
There is one small reason.
Okay.
So when Liv and Raquel won the titles the first time around, they won it off of Becky and Trish. And that's exactly the way it happened when they won it the first time. They won it the first time clean. Becky and Trish imploded because Becky turned on her. You would literally be doing the exact same storyline. Not that you're not really not doing, it's kind of the same storyline here anyways, but that's the only caveat. And mind you, I agree with you. I think that they could have done something else. They could have even done it on Raw following, right? Like, they could have done it tonight. There's nothing that stopped them from doing it tonight.
Right.
Of having them both come out and talk about how, because they could have done a promo, something to the effect of, I did WrestleMania, I did this, I did that, I did this. I am so awesome as Ronda Rousey. And then Shayna Baszler was like, shut the hell up, and then knock her out and then choke her out and then cut her promo about how I've been here, I'm cutting my dues, da 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 da. and done that way.
That would have been 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
They didn't need to do it on the pay-per-view. People have already watched it, right? So if they had just had them lose the titles and then they come out on Raw and then they pull that angle off, it makes Raw mean more. People are like more likely to tune in and see where this is going. I like that actually a lot better. I'm telling you, WWE, if you're listening, I will work cheap. Okay, I would only want like a couple 100,000.
Okay. We're independent wrestlers. We work for hot dogs and handshakes, bro.
I don't know. Maybe you'd. I'm still holding out. So, all right, let's move on. There, I think we've talked about that to death.
Somehow we talked about that almost twice as long as we talked about the men's Money in the Bank match.
It had more to talk about.
That's true.
Like literally, like there's not a lot more you could have said for the Money in the Bank men's. So the next match is the Intercontinental title match. It's Gunther versus Matt Riddle. I know you're not the biggest Matt Riddle fan. I actually do think he's a good worker. And I actually really enjoyed this match for what it was. It was hard hitting. Gunther looked strong with another solid title defense. They beat the crap out of each other.
Yep.
Which is pretty much par for the course for a Gunther match. Like if you get in the ring with Gunther, it's going to be hard hitting. And you're either going to hit Gunther back hard or you're going to take a beating. You're going to take a beating regardless. So you might as well make it competitive. This match was I thought it was really good. Maybe it's been done better or whatnot, but I thought for what it was, it was really solid. Gunther wins, of course. It wasn't really in doubt that nobody expected Riddle to win this. I don't think.
No.
But Gunther, he basically beat on Riddle's ankle, and then finished with a heel hook. And then did Riddle tap out or did he pass out? I forget.
I believe he tapped out.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was a tap out. And so the big thing I want to talk about in this match actually is what happened after the match, because we had Drew McIntyre make his return.
Yep.
Which was a big deal because there were rumors for months now since he hasn't had a match since WrestleMania, and there were rumors that he was unhappy, that he was going to be leaving, and that maybe he was going to, his contract was going to be up and where he would be able to go be at the Wembley Stadium or the Wembley Arena show for AEW. And so it was actually a pretty big surprise that he appeared here and made his return and got into it with Gunther. But McIntyre returning here was a pretty good surprise. There's bigger surprises later on in the show, I think, but I think it makes me wonder, because if McIntyre is back on television, that probably means he re-signed, that he renewed his contract. And if that's the case, it makes me wonder if he's going to beat Gunther for the Intercontinental title, or if Gunther's still going to go on, keep his reign going. It does add a little bit of intrigue. So that's obviously a big SummerSlam match that we'll probably get.
Yep.
1-on-1, which will be a great match. But what are your thoughts on this match and the aftermath after?
I'll start with you mentioned I'm not a big Riddle fan. He is the epitome of zero to hero. As in, like, he can take a beating and then he gets up and acts like nothing happened. A lot of people like him, and I just don't see what his appeal is for me. all that being said, this is the perfect kind of match for Riddle. It is that hard hitting match. It is that match to be just throwing potatoes and just taking them to and just beating the crap out of each other. This was that kind of match. And for Gunther, like you said, there was no stakes for me in this match because there was no way that Riddle was going to beat Gunther in my head. It is intriguing, though, that he beats Riddle, who is an MMA, and he's a mat specialist kind of guy. He beats him with a tap out. So it kind of removes more of the shine off of Riddle. Doesn't help Riddle at all. Then coming around with Drew McIntyre, I'm excited for it because going into SummerSlam, you need to be able to have somebody to go up against Gunther that will actually make it seem like his title's at risk and make it seem like there is actually a doubt that Gunther will win. I still think Gunther will retain it, but McIntyre could easily walk out with it too. And kind of sorry, we've kind of crapped on you the last 2 years, almost 3 years now since, you reigned over all of COVID time. So here's our little, love back to you with an IC title. I could see that, but I still think Gunther would go over on that. That being said, McIntyre got a huge pop. People love him. I like him.
I mean, I wonder why he got a huge pop. I don't know. Right? He's, obviously he was going to get a big pop there, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see on that. I do have to say though, you mentioned that you think Riddle goes 0 to hero. I think he sold really well in this match, though.
And he did in this one pretty well. But there are so many times I watch matches with him where, and I think it's more about he sells because he feels it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to sell against Gunther. It's going to happen.
This is true.
But sometimes you'll see matches where he's working guys. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head. When he worked Kaiser not too long ago, right? Another Imperium guy. And literally, he goes and gets beat around for a minute and then gets up like it was nothing. So, and goes and runs through his comeback, and that was it.
Yeah. I'm not huge on Riddle. I think he's perfectly acceptable. I like him a little bit. He's I'm not gonna spend 30 minutes praising and arguing with you like CM Punk, but yeah. Moving on to the next match, we've got Cody Rhodes versus Dominic Mysterio. And there was actually, it's funny because I was telling you, I didn't fall off my chair, okay? I just dropped my phone, okay? So, because you never know what's gonna fall around here, okay? But I actually, before this Cody Rhodes match, I had heard a rumor that it was possibly going to main event Money in the Bank, and I thought, that's crazy. Maybe that means Brock's returning.
Nope, they saved that for Monday.
Did he return on Monday?
Right at the beginning.
See, okay, so I knew he was going to be in London, so they just saved it. Okay.
That was in Baltimore.
Are they really in Baltimore? That's crazy, because I know that they talked about, or Triple H talked about in the press conference after the show that they were going to have another London show like on Sunday. So how did they get back so fast? Or did some of them stay and some of them not?
It's called a plane.
Right, but it's still across it's still like to the other side of the world, basically, right? I don't know.
I think it's only Baltimore. I think it's only 8 hours, maybe even less than that.
Okay. Still some serious jet lag, but
oh yeah.
Okay, so this match though, Cody and Dominic, I'm actually very high on Dominic Mysterio. I didn't used to be. I think he's the most improved wrestler of the last year, and he's got so much nuclear heat that I believe he deserves a title of some type. Maybe not the world title, maybe not one of those top titles, but uh, if Gunther wasn't the Intercontinental Champion, I could definitely see him winning that, or maybe even a U.S. title. I don't know. I don't even know if is the U.S. title still a thing.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know.
Austin Theory.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You know, and he's got a title. Didn't even make the show. Got it.
I mean, I can't fault you with that.
But this match was okay. I actually was a little underwhelmed by this match, a little bit. I thought my expectations for it were higher on it. It was just an okay match. Cody ends up winning. He hits the Cody Cutter and then the Crossroads finishes. It was, I don't know, it was a match that could have been on Monday Night Raw. Like, to me, it wasn't. I'm not going to remember this match at all a month from now.
No, it was a solid enough match. I mean, like I said, it could have been on Raw. The interesting thing is Dom hasn't done a crap ton of matches lately and such, but he is getting so much heat from just being him.
Right.
And I think Cody brought him through a good match. I think part of the reason that you were so underwhelmed in this match is because you had that headcanon in your head going. It's like, all right, is this when Brock's coming out? Oh, is this when Brock's coming out? Oh, is this when Brock's coming out? Mm. So,
yeah,
it does take that away. It was a fine match. Like you said, I'm not going to be like remembering, oh, Money in the Bank 2023. That was that great match between Cody and, it's not going to happen. That being said, with that nuclear heat, Dom is facing Seth frickin' Rollins in the main event of Raw for the title tonight.
Interesting. He's not going to win it. There's no way. I mean, I don't know if it's happened yet or not, but he's not winning it. But you know what though? Rhea Ripley looked fantastic just standing at ringside.
Yes, she does.
I'm just saying. I know that there's some people that are like, oh, she's better looking like without the makeup. I disagree. I think she's unique enough and she's a very good looking woman. And I could say that. But yeah, the match was okay. Nothing really to talk about there because they didn't advance anything. It didn't look like that story's continuing.
No, I don't think so.
It just looked like basically something for Cody to do while he waits for Brock, I guess.
Yeah.
So then, anything else you want to say on that match?
No. I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, I am sad that we didn't get a women's match with Rhea because she was involved in this match. But I think it was fine. By the way, if you have not followed Rhea Ripley, or at least follow the shenanigans of Rhea that she does house shows on like TikTok, you're missing out. Some of the funniest things I've seen on TikTok is from Rhea Ripley messing with people, fans, and other things on there. There was one I just watched just about an hour ago. She was at a house show and she got knocked off the apron, is laying on the ground next to the barricade, and she goes and ties the guy's shoes, and then it goes off and tries to it's just a fan unties his shoes and then rolls away like she didn't do anything. Just like the randomness that she does. And I think I told you the other night. There's one of the announcer whose name escapes me, Samantha something. Rhea was sitting there flirting with her and hitting on her, like right in front of like the camera and everything else, just to mess with her and stuff like that. Rhea Ripley's great. I love Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, it's no, Rhea completely gets her character too, and everything, and so she's amazing.
Yep.
So next we actually have a pretty big surprise because John Cena's music hits, and he came out to a monstrous ovation. Like, it was not the usual 50-50, booing and cheering that you usually get with him. I think part of it is that it's London, right? And a big star, but the other part, I think, is he's been away so long that, sometimes you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And I think that, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And so when Cena came back, he actually commented, it was really funny. He was like, you know, instead of them singing to his theme song saying Cena sucks, John Cena sucks, they were actually singing the actual words. It's like, my time is now, and John Cena, very, it was very funny that he kind of brought that up. And and then the big thing with this was John Cena teased the possibility of WrestleMania coming to London, and I fully believe that a lot of it wasn't really probably given away. He probably just says what he wants when he goes out there. Oh, go out, say some words, and then we're gonna have so and so interrupt you, and we'll lead to this, but just kind of ad lib it or whatnot. And he probably was just playing off of the crowd. Although now that he's mentioned it, it's it probably makes it a lot more likely that they're going to get something like that.
Well, my guess for it, because I was watching another thing about it, and so Cena kind of showed up to the show because he's filming in London right now, and my guess is he probably rolled up and asked H. He goes, "Hey, can I do a thing? Everything we announced, like numbers or something." And that's probably like when they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, there's this. Spin it as you want. Do that thing." That'd be my guess. I mean, there's also the possibility, like when they were getting there, they're like, "Hey, I hear John's here. We're gonna give him a call." One of the two,
right?
But
right. After, in the press conference after, they actually had they mentioned, like, somebody asked Cody Rhodes, about the John Cena mentioning, WrestleMania possibly coming there, and if there was anything to it or whatnot. And Cody basically was like, when John pretty much says what he wants, and when John went out there and he mentioned WrestleMania, Cody thought maybe he knows something I don't know. Maybe he's going to announce it, that it's happening, that WrestleMania is coming there, instead of just kind of playing with it. So it's kind of funny. They had is it
Grayson Waller?
Grayson Waller, who, this was my first time seeing him because I don't watch the weeklies, and I think it's his first premium live event, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember seeing him on any other main show.
Just NXT stuff.
Okay.
I don't think he's been on main stuff at all. He's done very little on the main roster since he's been brought up. Mostly just does the Grayson Waller effect, which is his talk show, because everybody has a talk show.
I thought I was actually very impressed with his mic work. Actually, he really riled up that crowd, and when he was talking about how he thinks it would be awesome if WrestleMania went to Australia, which is where he's from, and he was like, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie," the crowd was booing him. Or I was like, "This is brilliant. This guy's great." Like, I haven't seen him before, but he's like the complete opposite of someone like Austin Theory. Like, he's got something.
He's gotten a lot better. I watched him in NXT, and I couldn't stand him. I still could. I can barely stand him now. Okay.
I don't know. That was a good promo.
Yeah, it's usually the promo stuff I see with him. There's that thing. One of the last things he did in NXT is because Shawn's running NXT. Shawn Michaels. He did a thing with Shawn, saying that Shawn keeps screwing him over for booking him in bad matches and things like that, and wants to have one more. He wants Shawn to come out of retirement and have one more match against him at a pay-per-view. And Sean's like, as much as I'd like to kick your ass, instead I'll have the returning Johnny Gargano. And they had a really good match. And that was like the last match he had on NXT. But he's getting better.
I haven't seen him wrestle, so maybe he's the absolute, maybe he's not very good, right? But I guess we'll see. But his promo work, excellent, I thought. Which do you think that they would book WrestleMania in London just to spite AEW booking Wembley, and selling 65,000, plus tickets? Like, I would wonder if they would like
WrestleMania 40 is already booked,
right? So it would have to be like 41, maybe 42 at the earliest. So that'd be definitely the long game. It's like, remember when you sold 65,000 tickets 3 years ago? Well, we've got WrestleMania coming here. I don't know. That's a little weird. So maybe it has nothing to do with one or the other. I don't know. But the next match was the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. This was Bayley against Zelina Vega versus Io Sky versus Zoe Stark versus Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. And my goodness, if that's not an all-star level, number of women.
And Zelina Vega.
I said Zelina Vega.
Yeah, you said an all-star cast of women and Zelina Vega.
Hey, she was in a movie. She played AJ Lee.
I'm saying you're not wrong.
Now there's an all-star that just replaced, right? It's like she at least plays all-stars.
No, Zelina Vega's fine.
Yeah. I don't mind her. Is she on par with the others in the ring? Maybe not, but she could be.
Utah Connection, by the way, was Zoe Stark.
Yeah, which I mentioned to you, like she's probably the biggest success story to come out of Utah wrestling.
Yep.
Sorry, Martin Casal. Sorry, Manny Lemon. Sorry, everybody else. Until they're, wrestling for, the WWE on the main show on a pay-per-view and multiple pay-per-views. Sorry. And being, on Monday Night Raw and all this. Sorry, that's to me, like nothing has touched that. Yeah. And it's okay if they're listening. I still love you guys, but I'm going to leave it alone before I bury myself and burn all my bridges. So this match, though, this match was excellent. I thought it was hard hitting. There was some spots in this that I was like, I cannot believe the women are taking. A lot of them from like Zoe Stark, was getting. I know that she like got slammed or suplexed onto a ladder at one point.
It was a sunset football.
Yeah, onto the ladder, which her head almost like went through the ladder. Because it was bridged
she bounced
again.
Away. She bounced away because it was bridged, and then they dropped out when they hit, and her head kind of landed in a way where it kind of went between two of the steps, and when they dropped down, she kind of fell almost in a way where it looked scary.
Yeah.
So, and for knowing the person, it's like twice as scary. Like you see some people's like, oh, that's scary. Like Logan Paul, like we talked about earlier. Right. Oh, that was a scary bump for him. I've met Teresa, so it's like, or Zoe Starks. Yes, of course, it's going to be even twice as scary.
Yeah, and I've met her obviously too. I used to go to the same gym that she went to.
She's worked some devotion shows.
Yep, and that too. Met her there as well. So I've, it's awesome. I'm so happy for her, that she's getting this opportunity, and she's delivering. Like she looks like she belongs there, which is awesome. She looks like she's one of the better women. This match, crazy bumps all around. And there was good stories told throughout. I mean, all these women could stake a claim at winning the match and getting pushed. When you've got Trish Stratus and Bayley and Becky Lynch, those are top of the top. And then you've got your up and comers like Io Sky, Zelina Vega, Zoe Stark. Really good. And I was actually surprised with the stuff that Trish was doing. She's definitely not wrestling like a part-timer, woman. She's like, basically full-time, doing these things, and she's not holding back with her bumps. So she's doing awesome. Trish, by the way, Trish is my all-time favorite women's wrestler. Like she's up there with everyone for me. So like she's like my CM Punk, right? Like I don't know. Like so if you say that Trish does nothing for you, then I'm gonna
I'd be lying 100%. I love Trish. Also on Monday, her and Zoe cut a promo against Becky, and she comes out with the dashing Cody Rhodes style of mask on her face.
Oh, nice!
Saying that her face is broken, like Becky broke her face and stuff like that, so she's not medically cleared to go against her. So she went to Baltimore. She's working without working a match, like she's out there working story and stuff like that. And it's gonna be good. Like she's at this point now, she's not even doing the stuff to like just work, like to have a match or do this. She's obviously doing this to build up Zoe.
Yeah, and Zoe's getting a big rub from being part of this whole story.
Yeah,
absolutely. So they had a spot where I'm trying to think who introduced the handcuffs in this match.
That would be Zoe Stark.
She took it out, right, and she was like trying to handcuff Becky.
Yep.
And there was a spot where Becky basically like takes the handcuffs and puts it in Bayley's mouth and is basically fish hooking her with the hook of the handcuffs, which looks very painful. Like that was that was well done. And then it basically led to the most imaginative finish that they've had in a Money in the Bank.
You're jumping the gun slightly.
Okay. Fill in the blanks.
Io and Bayley are working together for the majority of this match because they're part of Damage Control. And Io is about to grab the title. She's up at the top, getting ready to grab the title. And you see someone's knocking the ladder over and making her fall at the top rope. You find out the person doing it is Bayley. So Bayley's trying to screw her out of getting the thing because she wants to win it, right? So jump to the end for the finish, which is where Nick's going with this.
Right.
Bayley and Becky are, fighting up and down the ladder, like constantly up and down on the ladder. And they start fighting again. Becky's going up the ladder. Bayley's reaching through the ladder, or like the second, third rung up, to hold Becky there and pulls on her arm. Io gets in between both of them through the ladder, like on the outside of the ladder, looking in between them, and then claps the other end of the handcuff that's currently attached to Becky, the other half now attached to Bayley, through the ladder, like halfway halfway up the ladder, so they can't even attempt to reach up, and then climbs over Bayley and Io and goes and gets the title and wins Money in the Bank.
It was amazing.
It was so good.
Yeah, that story, just how they set that up and everything, excellent. I really enjoyed this match a lot, and the finish like definitely elevated it. There was one thing though I didn't like, not necessarily with the match, but what happened after. When they did the press conference later that night, they had Io Sky come out, to talk with her briefcase, and she comes out with Bayley, and Bayley is sitting next to her and basically like they're together and nothing's happening. And somebody asks the question, it was like, is there dissension between you guys now, or what? How are you guys, after that finish? And they basically say, that there's no dissension there, and that that the briefcase, it's a win for all of Damage Control, and that they're both winning because of it. My problem with it is that they just basically blew that whole story out of the water, because if they're going to if it's just going to be a tease, save that for Raw so people can tune in, or something. Because why would you blow up that story and basically squash it on a press conference? It doesn't make sense to me. There was no reason for Bayley to be out there. Maybe she was out there to translate or whatnot, in case a question wasn't understood or something, or to answer. But they could have had anybody do that, or I don't know. It was, I didn't like it.
I have no good answer for you on why that would end up being that way, because storyline wise and everything else, it feels like that was like giving her the finger and saying, I can do this on my own. And then having her join her at the press conference just kind of buries that.
Right.
So, but who watches a press conference anyways? Jeez.
I do. I really enjoy it, actually. But yeah, the match itself, though, and the finish, if you just forget that ever happened afterwards, or you never saw it, or you just don't listen to me when I tell you about it, it was great match.
Match of the night up to this point for me.
Yeah, for me too. So then you've got the World Heavyweight title, Seth Rollins defending against Finn Balor. And this one, it's really interesting because, I mean, let's talk about the match first, and then I've got some comments on it. But so they're having a decent match, and they actually, was there a buckle bomb in there? I believe there was, right?
There was. In fact, there was two. So there was one that Finn gives to Seth, and then Seth does eventually give one to Finn as well.
Yeah, and for those that don't remember, or those that do remember, Seth Rollins and Finn Balor have wrestled on a big stage before, actually to crown the very first Universal Champion. And back at SummerSlam, I forget the year.
I think it was like 17, 18, something like that.
That sounds about right. Somewhere
they said it was like 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, so somewhere in there. And Seth gave Finn Balor a buckle bomb on the barricade, right? And Finn gets injured, wins the Universal title, has to forfeit it the very next night, and it really hurt the lineage for a little bit of that title, because it wasn't
the first champion held it for a night.
Yeah, exactly. But that match was better than this one. I felt this match was okay for me. It was, honestly, I don't feel it was better than the Cody and Dominic match. It was just kind of there. They had Damian Priest come out with his newly won briefcase and tease, that he might cash it in, on Seth if Seth wins, or, they kind of led people to believe that maybe he would cash it in on Finn if Finn won or whatnot. So what's silly about this is that, so he's standing out there, Damian Priest is, and Finn is in control, and Finn gets distracted by Damian Priest out there with the briefcase, I guess, because, if he wins, he might cash it in on him. And he ends up losing the match.
There's more to that. So when he goes out there, Damian Priest is sitting down, right?
Right.
And then when Finn goes up to go get ready to do the coup de grace, Damien gets up, like he's gonna like wait for him to do the coup de grace, throw him out, cash in, then take off the thing. That's what it felt like to me is going on. And at least going up to this point, they have been having the threat of Judgment Day breaking off, or at least having Finn leaving. Mm-hmm. So it did add more to that story. Also on Monday tonight, they also had Judgment Day there without Finn.
Interesting.
So,
okay. I mean, to me, it was like, I don't know. They tried to explain it like on the press conference and everything, and Damian Priest was just like, I was just out there, to kind of add pressure or to make Seth think that he was going to cash in on him and just have that in the back of his mind or whatnot. And Finn got distracted and he ended up losing the match. Had nothing to do with Damian Priest. That's what he said. But the way they set it up, it makes Finn look dumb. Like even if he was going to cash in, win the title first at least. I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't think it added to this match. I didn't like the finish. The match was just okay. To me, honestly, this is probably the worst match on the show for me. It just does nothing for me, and I don't think it does anything for Finn. And I kind of have been thinking that this world title, to me, it's still the consolation prize title, because you've got Roman, so he's not even defending the belt on this show. Roman Reigns is not defending his undisputed universal title on this show, but yet he's still main eventing over Seth Rollins' world title. If there was ever a time they could put that below it and put the Seth defending and make it mean something, they could do that, but they have chose not to. And I get it, because Roman and the Bloodline story, that's the draw, right?
It's the strongest story in wrestling.
Yeah,
right now.
maybe ever. They have told that story so perfectly that you can't have anything follow it. You have to close with that. But at the same time, it does diminish the other world title. And but Seth did bring up a good point in the press conference. He talked about how every defense that he has, it adds equity to that world championship. And so as long as he keeps wrestling and taking on challengers and having matches, and winning and defending it, it builds up the prestige of that title a little bit more and a little bit more. And that makes so much sense to me, because it's obviously not there yet, but if he keeps wrestling and he holds it for a while, it can mean something.
Yeah.
But as the match was, it was just kind of there for me. What did you think of the match?
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was just kind of there too. It was. So I often determine my feelings on stuff like this, like matches and things, is if I pull my phone out, right? Which is always a good tool as an independent worker too. Is if your match is going to crap, like people don't want to watch your stuff. Mm-hmm. If you look out at the audience and you see people on their phone, take it home.
Right. They should have saw you.
Yeah, right. So this is not the first match on the card. The first match on the card was actually Gunther Riddle that I pulled my phone out. Oh. And just because it's not for me,
really,
there was no stakes for me. I knew Gunther was going to win, and outside of looking to see what shade of red Riddle's chest was going to be by the end of the match, I really didn't care about that match.
Okay.
And sadly, though on paper Finn and Seth seems like a fantastic match, it's not one that feels like it's different enough to care about. Or like again, that was this, especially with the way that Priest won Money in the Bank. I really had very little doubt that there was anything to be happening that would make it worth it for me to watch. So again, my phone came out. That being said, these two are great, and I prefer this match over the Gunther Riddle match, but it's only because I think largely because of my bias for Riddle. Because I love Finn, I love Seth. They're great workers, and they told a good story about paying back things from previous stuff with the buckle bombs, and both constantly going for stomps, and then telling the story of Seth's rib injury, which he magically doesn't have tonight for Monday, even though he was like near death on Saturday with it. But
it's the time difference. I don't know. It's the time zones. It heals, yeah.
That's how it works. They told a great story with that, and I actually like the finish for it, the way they did it, because I think it does allow Finn to stay strong, because for all intents and purposes, Finn has that title won, right? He's going up for the coup de grace again. They hit him on that right there, and he's ready to go, and it's because of outside force, which he sees out of the corner of his eye, promotion, that it happens. So I think it still keeps him strong, because if it wasn't for Priest, he would have the win. But again, this was kind of a paint by numbers match, kind of like the Money in the Bank match for the men's was for me. So nothing to write home about. It wasn't bad.
Right? No, I agree. It wasn't bad. Just kind of there. Yep. So now we're up on the main event. So we've got the Usos versus Solo Sikoa and the undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns.
Which also once again has ties to Utah.
It does. Solo.
Yep, Solo Sikoa, very first Devotion Championship Wrestling heavyweight champion.
Yep, and now he's main eventing pay-per-views in London. So obviously this match had to go on last. And it was actually it was a really good match. I do feel like it started off really slow for me. Like, I know I was dozing off a little bit at the beginning.
You were dozing off most of the night.
And so it's not completely their fault, because I've just been super tired. I'm ready to doze off right now, to be honest. But
you'll fall out of your chair.
Right? Yeah. But it could happen. But once this really started going and they told the story and they kept building on it, my goodness, this was an excellent match and excellent storytelling.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments was, the throwbacks to previous parts in this story. In this Civil War, you had Jay at one point kicking out, and I know I'm skipping around and skipping some things, but I believe it was Jay that kicked out of something by Roman, and when he kicked out, he gave him a low blow, and that was a callback to what Roman Reigns had done previously.
Yep.
And gosh, there were so many great things, like Roman about to go for the spear, but the Usos, hit him with a double spear. Obviously double super kicks. This match was really good storytelling and building and building and building. There was a ref bump. And when there's a ref bump, Usos seem to have it won. They hit the 1D on Roman. And then they did let's see here. they did this really cool spot where they had the Usos like stacked, like how Roman Reigns had pinned Daniel Bryan and Edge at WrestleMania a few years ago. And he goes for the pin, and they both kick out. The crowd erupted. The crowd was so into this, and and all the near falls and the false finishes. It was really excellent. Before we get to the finish, is there any other spots that really stood out to you besides the finish?
So one other one that I wanted to mention is Roman puts Jimmy in a guillotine choke at one point. And Roman has beaten many people with the guillotine, right? And in fact, when Roman was first starting his title run, and Jimmy was his main opponent, right? They had that 3 series that they had, and Jay was out, or I'm sorry, Jay was the one they had 3 series, but Jimmy was out. Jimmy comes in to help him in a I think it was I Quit match, and he puts Jimmy in the guillotine and is choking him out until Jay says I quit to save his brother. And Jimmy is once again in this guillotine, and he eventually gets out of it. But it is an amazing, like you mentioned, there are so many callbacks to this. The nut shot that he had used to beat Jay in one of the title defenses. Even the double stack. So much so that Roman even called out the double stack on Twitter. He posted it on his Twitter the day of the show, saying that this is what he's going to do to them is put them on the double stack like he did with Daniel Bryan and Edge, and pin them both, and then does it, and they kick out. Such great storytelling, such great work by everybody involved in this. So
yeah.
And Nick was falling asleep.
I told you. I didn't fall over in my chair.
That's true.
No, this was a really good match though, and they told so many great stories in this. The Usos ultimately they hit the splash off the top, which kind of reminded me of the Head Shrinkers. They're which one of the Head Shrinkers was Rikishi, who ended up or who was their dad, right?
Who ended up having 3 kids, and all 3 of them were in this match. Actually, he's got like 7 kids, but
is Solo and the Usos, are they brothers?
Yes. Oh, a difference of like 8 years, but yes.
Okay. I probably knew that, but I had forgotten. Yeah. I forget a lot of things these days. But great match. They hit the splash and they end up pinning Roman Reigns.
More importantly, Jay ends up pinning Roman Reigns.
And it's the first pinfall loss for Roman Reigns in years.
Nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
Nearly 3 years.
Which is crazy. But because Roman has lost before, like they lost the tag match at the previous Premium Live event against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but Roman wasn't pinned then. This time the Usos pinned him. And you know how you talked about how like Trish is elevating Zoe Stark? Well, Roman Reigns and this bloodline story is elevating the Usos, is elevating Solo. It elevated Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It's elevating all of these characters around them. Mm-hmm. And the Usos, think about this. They've main evented a WrestleMania because of this storyline. And now they've main evented Money in the Bank. And they get a win here. Oh, just huge. And now we're probably gearing up for Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso again at SummerSlam is what I'm hearing. Which think about that main eventing SummerSlam as a solo, that's incredible for the Usos.
So I had mentioned this 2 years ago when we did our very first episode on who's going to beat Roman, right?
Mhm.
And I think I mentioned it again on the last one we did, but more of a dream thing, is I think that Jay should be the one to beat him because it bookends him. Jay was the very first opponent he had, very first storyline opponent that he had going into all of this, right? And he didn't make sense to beat him at the time. He was not a main event guy, right? He was not the guy to be running the company. Like, he's not the guy to put the company on your shoulders. But is he now? Through 3 years of all of this bloodline story and everything going on with all this, has Jay become the guy? And I can't say yes 100%. I can't say he's 100% going to be like the next Roman to be able to hold it that long or do anything like that. But is he in the conversation now? Yes. Definitely wasn't 3 years ago. But this storyline has given you ability.
3 years ago, I did not see him as even a singles guy, right? I didn't see him as a credible singles guy. And so when he faced Roman 3 years ago, it just seemed like such a mismatch that it wasn't interesting to me. This story, though, has elevated him to a place where, do I think he's going to beat Roman? No, I do not. Not here. Not now. The timing's not right. Maybe if they had brought this, kept this going, and Jay ended up winning the Royal Rumble or something and getting the rest of it, I could be like, oh wow, this could be it, right? And that would be beautiful. But wrestling him at SummerSlam, I don't think Roman loses until it's a WrestleMania. So if he ends up winning a match at WrestleMania and not losing, well, you're waiting another year to see him lose. That I could be wrong, but I just think this title is built up so big now that it can only end at WrestleMania. And Jay has been elevated by this. I see him losing, and then maybe he also can get a singles title somewhere. Maybe the Intercontinental title, maybe something else. I could see him, at least being seen credible for a secondary title, or even going against Seth for the World Heavyweight title. I could definitely see that, and maybe he wins that title. But beating Roman, I don't think so.
I think it makes a beautiful bookend, and I don't know if he's the guy, especially with the other options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing too, is the options. Who were the options 3 years ago, right? Even a year ago, who were the options, right? To beat Roman, but could he do it? Like, could he do it and make a story that makes it worth doing and make everybody happy? 100%. Is it the right story? Is it the right way to do it? I don't know. I think the right thing to do is to continue to build towards it and maybe have him lose again. But, he hasn't won, but Roman finds out a way to win again. And it builds to a WrestleMania. But at this point, Roman's completely on his own, right? He doesn't have the Usos. He'll eventually lose Solo for similar reasons.
Right.
And so when he finally has to face his opponent at WrestleMania, which will probably end up being Cody again, that's when he loses, when he's finally on his own.
Yeah, I think, gosh, the beauty about this Bloodline story is that it's got more legs than I ever thought it was going to have. Because when every time you think, oh, this is the culmination, this is what it's leading to, like Cody at WrestleMania, you think, oh, this is going to be it, right? And then Roman wins, and you think, oh, that was a mistake or whatnot. But then they build so beautifully to the next phase of the story. And same thing with Sami Zayn. You think, oh, Sami Zayn should have won the title, but that blended so beautifully, them winning the tag titles. So and then Roman moving on and telling that story. It's, I don't know where the end is, and I'm super excited because of that, because you don't know where it's going. You don't know what it's going to end up. We could say, oh, it's probably going to be Cody winning in the rematch, but can I say with 100% certainty at this point? No. I don't even know. There's so much that could happen to derail that WrestleMania rematch. That, I mean, Cody could get injured again, or maybe the fans turn against Cody, or there's somebody new that gets hot that they feel like they need to pull the trigger on.
LA Knight.
Not likely. Not likely. But there's so many layers to this story that I'm loving it, and I it makes me become a fan again, where I can just sit back and watch where it goes and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that, and I'm intrigued. So on SmackDown on Friday, that's coming SmackDown, they're doing what they're calling the trial of the Tribal Chief, kind of like they did with the trial of Sami Zayn.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're doing something involving the loss of, or his loss here, right? So I'm intrigued to see how this is going, because the beauty of this is he was so untouchable for the 3 years where he didn't lose any variety, right? He didn't take a pin of any kind. That it became its own mythos of pinning Roman in general, whether it's for the title or not. So now they have this great ability, even though he's still the champion, he's got to deal with a loss, but still it's the champion. And so they're doing this trial of the Tribal Chief to tie into that story and see where that goes. This may be, as you mentioned, a new leg, and a new feature of this, because the culmination from the Bloodline story of Jimmy and then Jay kicking Roman and doing all that stuff, and which tied in from them losing at WrestleMania, all culminated here to them as a pair beating Roman and getting out from under the Bloodline. And now the next phase of this storyline happens. So
yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I know at some point they're going to build up to Solo against Roman, and that'll elevate Solo. You probably, I mean, at some point down the road, you've got maybe a Seth Rollins story in there, because Seth never lost to Roman during this reign. They had a match and Seth won by disqualification. So there's so many different layers here. At this point, they could still do the Rock match against Roman and do that whole, I mean, there's so much they could do that I think at this point, like, we used to think, oh, there's no way it's making it to the next WrestleMania, or there's no way it's making it to here. Can you honestly say with absolute certainty that Roman's not making it for like another 2 WrestleManias without losing? I can't. I think they are playing the long game with his title reign, and he's going to shatter all the records. I don't know about all the records. There's some that it's like 6 years. It's like, oh.
I was going to say, I don't see him taking out Bruno, but right. I see him like a close second. Yeah, he'll be Hogan.
Hogan was like 3.5 years.
Yeah, I think he only needs another
4, actually.
I think he only needs another year though to be Hogan.
Yeah. So is that possible? They're knocking at the door. I wouldn't put it past them to get that record. So.
Alrighty. Well, what a pay-per-view this was. Like I mentioned before, I think for me this is probably one of the best pay-per-views I have seen them do in a long, long time. I'm super excited to see how this goes with all the storylines building from this and as everything's going as well. But speaking of storylines, we have some great shows coming up ourselves here for Devotion Championship Wrestling. So this Saturday, July 8th, we will be right here in Salt Lake City at Light Tree Studios for the Great American Day. And I'm excited for that match for that show, because your boy is holding currently a version of a Money in the Bank case, what we call a Case Chaos. And that gives me an opportunity at the Utah State television title whenever I choose. And happily, the person currently holding that belt, I have beaten senseless many times. So come out to that show July 8th and see what happens. Following that show, we will also be having on July 15th, following weekend, we'll be out in Ogden for Tussle Time out at Kamikazes. And then August 11th, we will be at the Wild Wild West Festival in Salt Lake City. And on August 19th, we'll be right back at Light Tree Studios for our next live taping. So come out to any of those shows. It'll be a great time. To find out times and everything for those shows, or to get your tickets, go to Motion Championship Wrestling on Facebook or DCW Salt Lake City on Twitter. Guys, I want to hear what you guys have to think, though, about what you thought of this show. This show, for me, I thought, like I said, was a really great show, probably one of the best they've had in a long time. So please reach out to us on our social medias, which will be Be Hero Media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can always go to BeHeroMedia.com to find out everything about us that way. Also, you can go ahead and put in a review right here on Be Hero Presents through Spotify. While you're there, throw a like and give us a share. And then lastly, you can also reach out to us individually. You can reach out to me at Mike Burke at DCW on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, or on Twitter at Mike Burke Pro. You can also reach out to Psycho on Facebook at Psycho Wrestling. All Perfect. That palaver. I got it all good out there. All right, Psycho. Anything else I'm forgetting about?
No. I think you just about covered it, and then you might as well plug next week's show again.
That's right. So next week we are going to do our State of the Wrestling World address, I guess. So what we'll do is every 6 months or so, probably around the beginning of July and then the beginning of January, we'll go ahead and hit you up with where our thoughts are about the world of wrestling at that time and our predictions for the following next 6 months. So we will be doing that as the next episode. So please, if you're not currently subscribed, so you can hear that episode on whatever podcast platform you got. And until next time, guys, this has been Be Hero Presents, and for me and Psycho, this is us tapping out. Have a good night, guys.